Good morning. Welcome back to Fit Body Secrets, where my mission is to bring you guys inspiration, motivation, and a ton of tips to help y'all on your fitness and your fat loss journey. And I'm going to make sure I am live on the gram, making sure that people can hear me okay. I love doing these live on Instagram, by the way. I don't know if you guys ever watch me. I don't know if you're listening to the recording or if you're watching me live on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. I'm curious if you want to share with me how you're absorbing my content. I would love to hear. So just going to give it a few minutes to make sure anybody that pops on is on live. I'm checking here on YouTube, Instagram, make sure I'm live. It is also 8 o'clock in the morning. A lot of people commuting to work, on their way to work. Give it about 90 seconds or so. All right. I see somebody on there. Michelle Neal. Good morning. All right. We're going to jump right into today's topic. I want to talk a little bit about macro tracking. And, well, honestly, for a lot of you guys, you don't need to be focusing on macro tracking. More so, I want to focus on the frustration of maybe you have been tracking your calories and macronutrients and you're not seeing any progress. And I want to explain some things that might be going on and also help you focus on the details that matter most, because a lot of people focus on numbers and macro Tetris and all this stuff, and it can be overwhelming, frustrating, and downright lead to burnout and often also lack of progress. And I want to explain how it is probably the most effective way for you guys to be able to get results. However, you have to be focusing on the details that matter most. And I'm going to explain to you some of the things that might be going on that are holding you back from seeing results. And if this is you, if this resonates with you, I would love to hear which one of these stands out to you, or if you have other things that you have questions about in terms of calories, macros, nutrition, fat loss, anything, to shoot them up in the chat, because I also like to do a little bit of Q&A as well. So maybe I'll save some time for Q&A after I finish things up here. So first and foremost, what I want to explain to you guys is macro tracking isn't what creates the results. I want you guys to understand the importance of a very important tool that makes macro tracking effective for helping you dial in your nutrition to feel better and to get better results from your hard work. And food tracking is that tool. Food tracking is the tool you need to master to figure out and troubleshoot everything with your diet, whether you focus on macros or you don't focus on macros, whether you're looking to find out why you're low on energy, why your gut's a mess, why your metabolism's off, why your hormones are off. All of that stuff can be fixed by keeping an accurate food diary, because having a food diary is kind of like maybe you're in debt, right? I like to use money as an analogy. You're in debt. You're not sure where all your money's going, right? It's going to a financial advisor with all of your expenses and all of your luxury items that you're spending money on, so that he can comb through things and see where you might be overspending and where you need to pull back a little bit, or where you may need to be putting a little bit more attention with your finances. So that's essentially what food tracking is for you. It is a diagnostic tool, and it's the number one thing you need to master. But if you're a step ahead of that and you are already tracking your food, I want to talk to you about some of the things that might be happening that are holding you back if you are starting to get into a macro-focused approach and or you're tracking your food and you're not getting anywhere, okay? So number one, and this is the biggest reason, you're not tracking everything. And I'm going to jump right into this. You're not tracking all of the things. And I get this all the time. Oh, well, macro tracking worked, but I had to meticulously track every little thing. Well, why are we putting such an emphasis and stuff on this like meticulousness around tracking when it's a simple step? You're literally, if you're eating it, you're tracking it. And I want you to think of it in like reverse, okay? If you're stressed about meticulously tracking every little thing, think about how many every little things you might be eating. Maybe the real problem isn't the meticulous tracking, it's the how many every little things that you're consuming. And so one of the things I often see is not tracking everything. And sometimes it's just not recognizing that those little things do add up. In fact, this was me. I remember when I first got back into tracking my food, I had spent years walking away from tracking my food and eating clean only. And I knew I was missing a piece of the equation. I knew that, and I knew that I needed to dial it in. And when I first started tracking things, I was definitely the eyeballer. I would track some things and not others. And I would go through days where I'm like, it was good enough. And when I actually took control over things and I tracked everything, I actually realized how many calories I was missing. So the number one thing is not tracking everything. So you have to be accountable to that. And one of the biggest things I think that people run into the problem with is like, you're very busy in your day and you don't have time to be like in a food app and trying to figure out how to track, XYZ items. The best thing you can do if you are a busy individual and you struggle with this, because I want to give some real-time application for this as well, is to just keep some kind of a notepad nearby or your phone and just take a note of what you're eating while you're eating it. And then at your next meal, you should be able to track it then. Taking the time at your next meal to track it. And if every single one of your meals is literally on autopilot, you're never actually being mindful of your what you're eating, then food tracking is not your problem. We need to take a step back and get you eating some more structured meals and not always winging it every single day. So that's where I can also go into one of the biggest issues is people jump right into macros without actually addressing some of the problems that they have in their basic foundation. Macros is like the end of the picture. It's not the beginning of the picture, the end of the journey, at the beginning of the journey. So for number one, you want to make sure that you are keeping tabs of everything. Number two is maybe you're tracking everything, but you're not accurately tracking it. And that was also me, guilty of this. Eyeballing a lot of portions, not using a food scale, eating out and logging what you're eating, but the report of the calories was very not much. It was very unrealistic for what you actually had. I see this all the time. A client will log something like chicken curry at like 200 calories. I'm like, yo, chicken curry is going to have way more than 200 calories unless you're having a very small portion. So we want to make sure that you are accurately tracking everything as well. And this is easier to do if you actually have some of the resources that are already available to you on your smartphone. Okay. ChatGPT has made a lot of things very easy. You can actually ChatGPT most of the things you're eating, and you can even ask for specifics on the portions that you're having. I had about the size of my hand portion of chicken curry at a Thai restaurant. How would you log that with macros? And it will give you some specifics on that based on research it does for you. However, there's also a couple of websites like Nutritionix and things like that that you can track. But you also want to make sure that you are accurately tracking everything. Using a food scale. I get this all the time as well. Do I have to weigh everything? Why wouldn't you? You have fat loss goals. You're tired of running around trying to figure out why nothing is working. That's going to be the one thing that ensures that what you're logging is accurate. The more you can use a food scale, the higher your chances of success are. So why would you not do that one step? It's going to make everything a lot easier. So you do want to make sure that you are tracking everything and accurately tracking everything. Okay. Number three, and this is another huge one. And I see this from women and men who have, I wouldn't say men, mostly women. They label themselves a macro tracker, and they have been loosely tracking their macros for years. And it's kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like a status. It's like a level of status. Like you label yourself like a macro tracker. Like I'm a macro tracker and I do this thing, but like you're not really being consistent with being in a phase and being consistent with your macros in that phase or tracking in that phase. So loosely tracking your macros for years, trying to lose the same weight is not getting you anywhere, right? Like, and this is like maybe you track half the week and not the other half the week. Maybe you have cheat days. Maybe you'll go through periods where you're like on point and you're tracking everything and then you're not tracking anything. And you're never actually getting to a place where macro tracking for maintenance is just something that you do, or that you've done the macro tracking thing for a period of time and you don't have to do it anymore. Like that's really the truth. It's like you haven't been consistent with using the tool to get to the results that you need. So you need to be committed to, if your goal is fat loss right now, then you need to be committed to tracking your food for a period of time in fat loss, not half the week. That's not going to get you results. There are no cheat days in fat loss. Your body doesn't register days off with nutrients. It sees a steady flow of nutrients every 24 hours. It doesn't reset every 24 hours. Things continue on. It is a continuous thing. So you have to be continuous and consistent with your nutrition in order to get results. And this just comes down to a lot of people overthinking things. I know I mentioned number 1 and number 2 is not tracking everything and not accurately tracking everything. But what I find happens is when you feel like you don't have complete control, you don't know how to track those things, or you're always living on poverty calories and macros. And when you want to go over on those poverty calories and macros, you feel guilty for it. So you avoid tracking it altogether. And you essentially feel like it didn't happen if you didn't track it, but that's not the truth. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're being consistent with your tracking. That also is going to allow you to be able to make more educated adjustments based on not just what's going on with the scale, but how you're feeling, like where your appetite's at, where your energy levels are at, how your workouts are feeling, all of that stuff, how your digestion is. When you're tracking consistently, you can find things in your diet that might be negatively serving you for your goals. Okay. So that's another thing to talk about. Number 4 is a big one. And I kind of already prefaced this, but focusing on macronutrients all the time. And I see this a lot is like, so somebody who doesn't have a well-laid foundation, they haven't built they haven't built good meal planning routine, good meal prep routine. They don't have any idea what a macro is or where to get their macros from. And they're going all in on numbers while they're not focusing on the details that matter first, which is like, are you actually accurately tracking things? Are you building balanced meals? Are you eating good quality foods? Are you understanding the importance of calories and all of that stuff that matters so much more than focusing on the numbers? Because when you focus just on the numbers, you are going to burn out. I see this all the time as well. Women at 6 o'clock at night and they're they haven't hit their protein and they have hit all their carbs and their fats. And like, what do I do? Just eat egg whites for dinner? Like, no, you build a balanced meal and you correct the next day. Like you figure out where you went wrong today so you can fix it tomorrow. It's not, I'm going to suck down a tablespoon of olive oil because I'm under on my fats. There's not enough of a blend between intentional eating and intuitive eating when you're focusing on macros. And I had a conversation with a client yesterday who was like looking at what she really wanted to do in her journey. And I'm like, as we were teasing through some things on the conversation, it came down to the fact that like she was in her head playing macro perfection. And I didn't know that until we had the conversation. I'm like, there's going to be days where like, you just want more carbs. Like, that's okay. Eat the carbs and be okay with that. Like that's where progress is made. Okay. So we don't want to just focus on macronutrients. In fact, we never want to focus just on macronutrients. All of my clients are given pretty loose macro ranges. In fact, we're getting ready for our week 2 call for my Jumpstart. And it's awesome watching how many of the people that joined in my Jumpstart, if you're watching this and you're in my Jumpstart, I am so freaking proud of every single person in there. I don't have one negative thing to say about any of my check-ins this week with any of my clients. They all checked in. They all learned something from this week, and they are all on track with making progress in a way that allows them to focus on the details that matter most. And for some of them, yeah, we are dialing in the macros. For others, we're still a step behind, and that's okay. Like, this is about meeting you where you're at, and you can't always just be focusing on macros. And then number 5 is also, this is where if you're listening to this episode and you're hearing all of these things and you're like, yeah, Cheryl, I am tracking everything. I am weighing everything. I barely eat out. And when I do, I choose the healthiest options. I am very consistent, almost too consistent. I do focus on numbers, but I also do eat very clean. I eat a lot of good quality food. This is what it comes down to. If you are hitting the macros, you're doing all of the things, you don't have the right calories and macronutrients for you. Hands down. You're missing that piece of the puzzle. And that is a big part of my Jumpstart. You cannot just go online and find a calculation that says, this is a calorie deficit to help you lose 1 to 2 pounds a week, and know that that is always going to work. It isn't always going to work. And it's not always going to be the right way for you because everybody is a little bit different. It takes time to find the right amount. Macronutrients is not, or finding your macronutrients and your calories is not a calculation. It is a process. And so if you're somebody who's listening to this and you're like, I am doing all of these things, but I'm not getting anywhere, you likely are not working with the right calories and macros. And that is where I come in. And it is where you can also do this for yourself. And I'm going to explain that to you now. Okay. Even if you have a macro calculation that you're working with right now, if it's not working, it doesn't mean it's the right one. And we have to assess a couple of things. How is your feedback right now? Appetite wise, are you hungry? Are you full all the time? How is your workouts feeling? Are you feeling energized? How is your sleep? Are you waking up feeling energized, or are you waking up feeling sluggish? Are you having good sleep at night? Are you having good bowel movements? All of these things matter for figuring out the right amount for you. And I'm going to start by asking you, how did you start your fat loss journey? This is the most overlooked step in a fat loss journey. Is you go right to the deficit. You go to the calculation and you're like, I want to lose weight. Put me in a deficit. And that calculation is spitting out numbers for you to help you lose calories without knowing how much you're currently consuming. Most people need to do a food audit first. And I can sometimes do this naturally. I can kind of assess based on what a person's telling me their diet's like, where they're at in terms of, are they under eating or overeating, and where they might be overeating and by about how much. I can usually see that based on what their weight has been doing over the last 6 months, based on what they tell me, and based on what they report as their typical habits, weekdays to weekends, what their day looks like, all of that stuff. But you can also do this too. It's literally taking 7 days of not going into a calorie calculator. It is simply taking 7 days and without judgment, just tracking everything that you're consuming, not focusing on numbers, not thinking at all about what you think you should or shouldn't be doing, literally just taking stock of like what your habits are like. When you get hungry at 3 p.m., what do you go to eat? Like logging those things and seeing where your numbers fall, because that's going to give you the best data. That's going to allow you to see how patterns are happening and help you fix those patterns. If you are always hungry at 3 p.m. and you're craving things at the vending machine, and we look back at what you've had for breakfast and lunch, and you're like, man, all I had was a protein shake for breakfast and a salad for lunch. No wonder I'm craving crackers and cookies and cheese at dinner at snack time, right? Because you're not getting enough calories. So we can make adjustments there. It's also knowing that like maybe your calorie calculation is well under what your current maintenance is, because it's not factoring in your basal metabolic appropriately. You might have more muscle mass. It's not taking into factor your stress levels, the types of foods that you consume on a daily basis that impact the thermic effect of feeding. So a food audit is where you should be starting. That's going to allow you to have an accurate account. As I mentioned, like the money analogy, it's going to the financial advisor with, here's my expenses. And that's why, as I mentioned, the food tracking tool is the thing you need to focus on, not the macros, okay? So you need to do the food audit. Once you have the food audit, it makes the calculations make more sense, okay? Because if you go online, and I would not recommend looking for an online calculator for fat loss, what I would do instead is find an online calculator for total daily energy expenditure. And I'm going to write this down because I need to talk about this today. That is going to be that's going to be an Instagram reel today. Now, when you have your food audit and you have an estimation of your total daily energy expenditure, and the cool thing about that is it's normally going to give you like 5 different figures. It's going to have like, like sedentary, light activity, maybe 4 to 5 workouts a week, maybe hard, intense workouts 4 to 5 times a week. And then it's going to be like hard workouts plus high intense, or a lot of movement throughout your day. Like you're going to have that, and you can really assess, okay, here's what my current intake looks like. I know I'm working out for like 60 to 90 minutes a day, or I'm hitting the CrossFit class. It's maybe 20 minutes of high intensity training, but I'm not very active throughout the day. You can kind of look and figure that stuff out as an average to compare to where your current intake is. And that gives you a better understanding of where you should be starting, right? And if you're like, okay, let's just say your food average for the week was 2276, and you look at where you're looking at on that TDEE, and that's somewhere between like, high intensity training 3 to 4 times a week and, training 5 to 6 times a week. You're like, okay, that's probably about where I'm at for maintenance. So I think I'm eating at maintenance. Maybe I just need to tweak macros a little bit, or maybe you're way over what that calculation was. Now, okay, this calculation probably isn't right for me. This is a better ceiling for me. And we can really use that to help you figure out where you should be in a deficit. All right. So we want to optimize. If on the Vice, you find that you're way under what you should be at for TDEE, you might be chronically under eating. You might have metabolically adapted from years and years and years of being a macro tracker, even a loose macro tracker, and always being underfed and only having a few sprinklings of days in where your calories are a little bit higher. So if you're looking to make sure that you're eating the right amount, you want to find the food audit. You want to use the food audit. You want to optimize your calorie ceiling. And then you want to just literally, it's just a number adjustment at that point. It's taking 10 to 15% or somewhere between 300 to 500 calories off of that from carbs and fats, keeping your protein at a baseline. At a baseline. That's what I want to say. I want to make one other mark on this as well, because this is also another problem that I see when people are not eating the right amount. I'm talking calories here, but macronutrient amounts matters too. And oftentimes I find that so many people focus on the 1 gram per pound of body weight for a goal for protein. And that's often an overshot of protein. And then what I find is people are under consuming carbs and fats and not knowing what split of macros works best for your style of training and also for your food preferences and your metabolism, because everybody's body is going to be a little bit different. And again, these are things that I teach, and I'm teaching my clients in the Jumpstart. But to give you some basics understandings is when you're shooting your protein number, you want to be looking at around goal body weight and using around 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of goal body weight. If you're overshooting that, it might be because maybe you feel more satiated on a higher protein diet. However, I want to challenge the fact that so many people are afraid of carbs. And what they don't realize is that by just incorporating a little bit more carbs, your diet compliance might go up because you won't crave those foods as much. And calorically, carbs and proteins are equal. So 1 gram of carbs is 4 calories, 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. Although they do have a slightly different thermic effect of feeding, they are equal in calories. So you want to make sure that you are using your calories for carbs when you need them. So around 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of goal body weight is a baseline for protein. And then the other 2 macros, carbs and fats, should be distributed pretty balanced to start. With my higher intensity training athletes, so those of you guys doing CrossFit 4 to 5 times a week, you might benefit more from a higher carb, lower fat diet, along with knowing your preference for food. So some clients tend to eat a little bit more calorie dense things, and they might veer more on the higher fat side, whereas a client that prefers to eat more volume might veer more on the high carb side. And that's where we can go into the preferences there. But the bottom line is you got to have the calories right first. And also, kind of going into the carbs versus fats, some clients don't realize that their body metabolically might respond better to a higher carb diet than a higher fat percent diet, because it's so ingrained in people to think that low carb is the right way. Everybody's very different, and we have to figure out what works best for you. So just to kind of recap, and I know this really started off as hey, take ownership of your faults, but I also want to end on the note that maybe it's not all your fault, all of your fault. So just to kind of recap what I talked about today, and then I'm going to open up for Q&A. If you have been food tracking and you're getting into macros and you're not seeing results, make sure that you can check the boxes off of these things. Number one, you are tracking everything. You're not leaving anything to chance. You're logging the handful of pretzels you had. You're logging the lick of peanut butter that you had when you made your kid's sandwich. You're doing all of that stuff. Number two is you are tracking everything accurately. So you're using a food scale when you're at home. You are becoming a very good eyeballer when you're eating out, and you're limiting your eating out to make sure that you can control those calories. Number three is you're being consistent with those two things for a long enough period of time. If you have not been consistent for a 21 to 28 day streak, you cannot complain about not getting results. You need consistency for that long in order for you to see the progress happen. Okay. Number four is you're focusing so much on the numbers before laying the base foundation and making sure that your food quality is dialed in and that your other stuff is dialed in first. The numbers don't really matter all that much if you're doing all of the other things. If you're controlling your calories by making sure that you're weighing and tracking your food, if you're eating good quality food, a lot of that stuff fixes itself. If you're building balanced meals, you don't really even ever have to really focus so much on numbers, just being within number ranges that allow you to feel your best in your training and also in your life. And then number five, coffee. Number five is if you're if you're checking the boxes on all of those things and you're nodding your head and you're saying yes, it just means you're not eating the right amount for your body. That's hands down what it is. You don't have the right amount. It's not your hormones. It's not your metabolism. Those things might be being impacted by this, but it's truly you need an adjustment to how much you're consuming. And there's a lot of fear about that because we have a lot of insecurities because we have so much pressure externally on how much we should be eating. And the only way to fix this is to learn how to be intentional with your food and how to also be intuitive with that intention. And this is just a piece of what I'm teaching my Jumpstart clients. And it's crazy. I've had some people reach out to me like, are you still doing the Jumpstart? Yes, but it is closed. However, if you want to learn more about this stuff, you can always reach out to me. I had somebody yesterday message me, and I did tell her that the Jumpstart is closed, but I also do offer a 30 days. If you do not get the results you're looking for, or you do not get what is promised to you from working with us, you get your money back. Because I fully believe in my program and I know that I'm going to be teaching you these things. It's a no-brainer. If you're somebody that's frustrated with not getting results and you're ready to take it to the next level and you're not quite sure about coaching, or if coaching is right for you, or maybe you've had a coach and you're not really quite sure if this is going to be just one more thing that you can't commit to, that's what I want to troubleshoot with you. And this is not a plug for coaching, but obviously this is what I do for a profession. By the way, not a professional podcaster, not a professional content creator. Those are just things that got dropped into my lap because all I wanted to do was be a nutritionist for people. That's all I really wanted to do. I wanted to help people with their nutrition. So that is what I do full time. And if you want to work with us, definitely feel free to reach out. I'll make sure we have a link to sign up for a strategy session, and no pressure strategy session also. It's not something that, I'm not looking for new clients. It's just if this seems right to you, seems like the next logical step, getting on a call, talking to me. In fact, you know what made me feel so special? Oh my gosh. I had a call with somebody and I don't know. I don't really think of myself as like an influencer. I'm honestly like a normal person, like I wash my own hair and like I clean my own car and I like wash my own floors. Anyways, I had a client who was working with one of my assistant coaches, and she was finishing up, and I wanted to set up a call with her because she had made tremendous progress. And I got on the phone with her. She's like, I cannot believe I'm talking to you right now. This is like, I just would never think I would actually get to talk to you. Like, I watch all your videos and this and that. And I'm like, yo, I'm a real person. Like, I'm like, it made me feel so special. I was like, I feel like a celebrity, but I'm not a celebrity. I swear, I'm just a normal person who wants to help you. So that's why it's a no pressure call. If you want to talk and you want to chat more about your goals, maybe you have more specific concerns in terms of hormones, metabolism, and stuff like that. All things that I do have specialty in. We can troubleshoot some of those things and make sure that we are touching on that stuff. So that's all I got for today. I'm going to open up the Instagram chat and see if anybody has any questions or anything that I might have missed here. I'm looking to see, I see 4 people still watching. Do you guys have any nutrition questions? Anything related to, and it could be related to macros. It could be related to nutrition, performance, anything. What questions do you guys have? I'm going on to, good morning, Judy. And you're walking and watching. I love that you are walking. Almost to work, Larry. Good morning, Jeffrey. I hope you had a good weekend. I know that you're away at some kind of a competition. Do you guys have any questions about anything? I see 8 people watching either on YouTube or, I think it is on YouTube because I couldn't get this to stream on Facebook. Oh, I have a little funny story to tell you guys. So last week I decided to buy a coffee pot. I haven't had a coffee pot in a few years, like since I moved out of my apartment. And even before that, my apartment had drawing up drugs and watching. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Anyways, I hadn't had a coffee pot since my apartment, and it had like died like a year before I left. So I actually just switched over to instant coffee. And judge me all you want, but Cafe Bustelo Espresso Instant is the shit. I'm sorry. I just, that's my thing. I realize it. And had to take another sip. So anyways, I invested in a new coffee pot. Love the new coffee pot. But let me tell you, the amount of overwhelm and anxiety and overthinking I did trying to figure out the best freaking coffee to buy for my coffee pot. And I spent $17 on a bag of freaking coffee last week. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give this coffee a shot. And let me tell you, it does not hold a candle to my Cafe Bustelo Instant. So I'm very disappointed. However, I am going to try this. I am going to try the Cafe Bustelo brewed to see if I like that, because I don't know why. I guess I started thinking about, and I haven't done a lot of research on this, but I do know that there is some research about the quality of coffee and, like different things that whatever, like mold and stuff like that. So I was like, maybe I need to start buying better quality coffee, because I am looking at ways to just remove any reason for, inflammation. But anyways, long story short, I think I like my instant coffee better. I mean, this is instant. I had the brewed coffee this morning, and I always have 2 cups of coffee, always before 10 a.m. So this is my second cup, and it's half calf. But yeah, the coffee is just, it's good. So Judy, and I'm going to answer your question, Jeffrey. I didn't miss that. Here's my instant coffee. Okay. I boil the water and I use 1 scoop of Cafe Bustelo instant espresso and 1 scoop of the Nescafé decaf. And I put boiling water. I put 70 grams of almond milk, and I put 30 to 40-ish grams of whatever skinny syrup or non-sugar based syrup that I have that I'm using for that week, whatever one I have open. And I use my coffee frother. I get it about halfway full. I froth it up. It gets a nice foam. Like this coffee just gets a nice foam. And I get the coffee foam, and then I add a little bit of whipped cream on top. It's my coffee. And it's like a little bit of dessert in the morning, but I love it. Anyways, the brewed coffee just has a little bit of a different taste. And I don't know. The espresso tastes a little bit more chocolatey to me. I don't know how to describe it, but it has more of a chocolatey taste. And the brewed coffee doesn't have that. So maybe I just need to find a different bag of coffee. I'm gonna try the espresso from Cafe Bustelo that's in the bag and see if I can brew it. So to answer your question, minute rice, brown or white? Honestly, so giving you a little info, the brown rice is going to have a little bit of fiber, but it doesn't really matter because rice itself isn't very high in fiber. So whichever one you prefer is going to be the one that I would go with. So yes. And Judy, I always stock up. Although this week when I went, I was very disappointed. I was hoping to see a few more fall flavors, and I probably missed it, and they were all gone. I believe Monday is when they normally get their shipments in, but I can't make it to TJ Maxx on Monday. That just is never going to happen for me. So maybe on my next Monday off, I'll do that. But yeah, to answer your question, Jeff, it doesn't really matter as long as you're, being consistent with it. Let's just talk about what you mentioned about traveling, diet being crap. Okay, so this is another pitfall that people fall into when they start tracking their food. You're not using the tool for what it could be used for. Is when you're traveling, that's what makes food tracking also so helpful for being on track with your goals, because you can actually look up the nutrition facts of foods before you consume them. And it doesn't mean that you have to always choose healthy options. It's just knowing that you can actually, figure out how to make this work. And so like if I have clients that are traveling, I'm like, the simplest thing to do is, stick to 3 meals a day. And if you have a calorie budget of 2,400, make sure that your 3 meals don't go over 800 calories. Easy. Like now you're literally just at the menu. You're like, let me look at this menu. Let me pull up the calories. Okay, perfect. That's going to work. Like that's what I would shoot for. I even like eliminate the stress. Yes. If you have protein at those meals, even better. But that's going to be the easiest way for most people to realize how they can use traveling in the beginning. And then, yeah, as you get better at it, you're learning how to make those better food choices as well. Larry says, do you actually see a noticeable difference with protein intake? I'm 250 down 60, but fight with the protein thing. I get about 125 grams daily, still squat over 500 pounds, couple muscle ups. I'm not losing strength. So I would honestly have to say you need to know what body composition is looking like. Are you seeing changes there? And my other question is, are you consistently always only getting 125 grams a day? Are you sure that you're accurately tracking everything? 125 grams of protein a day, just to give you an idea of what that would look like. That's 1 scoop of protein powder and about, call it 10 ounces or so as a guesstimate of protein a day. Like that would be about 120 grams. And that's not incorporating any other protein sources like from grains or dairy or any of that kinds of stuff. So I would say you might be undershooting how much protein you're actually taking in, Larry, just knowing you. But I think that, yeah, that is a pretty low amount of protein. It really also depends on what your training volume is like. Some people, so the recommended daily amounts of protein is actually much lower than what is recommended for health. I think it's something like 0.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. So like for a female, that's like 50 to 60 grams of protein. That's like survival. So like you probably aren't, hurting yourself by doing that, but body composition will definitely give you more of an understanding of that. Not on any supplements, but if my strength is still good, I feel like protein isn't that bad. I honestly think that you might be, if you're feeling good, you might be getting enough protein. Your body just might be better at, everybody's also, the thing about protein is like muscle protein synthesis matters more. And some people are just better at converting, protein into amino acids and being more efficient with that. Everybody's body is a little bit different. I do think that 125 is still a little bit on the low side for you, but I would need to remember your height and age. And I would probably need to see some photos to give you a better understanding. I would say off the top of my head, I think that 160 to 180 would probably be a better range for you, and probably might be more likely what you're getting in over the course of 7 days if you aren't accurately tracking every single day. Because you have to remember, even like those, what I would like to call quote unquote cheat meals might be giving you more protein than you realize. 6.3, yeah, that's too low of protein for you. So you're either getting more protein than you realize, or you might be losing some muscle mass. I see a question here. If I go with protein at the recommended levels, I eat a ton of dairy. What do you think about inflammation related to large amounts of dairy? Okay, Jillian, I love this question. So the first and foremost question to ask yourself is, how are you feeling? Again, it's so easy to focus on external reasons for inflammation. It must be the dairy. It must be this food. It must be that food. But how are you actually feeling? Are you feeling inflamed? And you also want to look at other markers. A lot of times while people think that dairy is inflammatory, what it usually is the person that's under a lot of stress and has other triggers isn't building up the enzymes in their body to digest the dairy. And that's causing some GI distress, which might be presented as inflammation. I don't think there is a problem with dairy. I think that, in fact, dairy is a very healthy and a good whole food source, or whole food. It has all of the essential amino acids. So we're talking about best good proteins like whey protein, Greek yogurt, all that stuff is great for the body. So hopefully that puts your mind at ease, Jillian, that you are doing fine. I definitely think that dairy protein is underrated. I think it's a great source of protein. So you just have to watch some gut symptoms. All right, I'm loving this. What other questions do you guys have? I love a good Q&A. In fact, if you guys want me to do more Q&A, I would love to just do some Q&A, whether it's just on Instagram or on YouTube. But what other questions do you guys have? I see some people watching. Feel free to ask me questions. Who has coffee recommendations for me for my new coffee pot? Something simple, because I'm not buying another $18 bag of coffee again. That was wasting my money. All right, I don't see any more questions. I do have to announce a winner because I did offer. So guys, just so you know, when I did my jumpstart, I will look at that. That's a good question. I have one more question I'm going to answer. That's a great question. I am going to be doing a raffle. I will probably do that tomorrow, just based on my schedule today. Those of you guys that referred people into my jumpstart, by the way, can I just tell you all, I am so grateful when you guys refer people to me. It makes me feel good that I am somebody that is trusted in this space, and it's why I do what I do and why I'm so grateful. But I did offer a raffle, and I'm going to be raffling off $250 to somebody. So stay tuned for that. Anybody that referred somebody and their name is on that on the signups, you're going in for the raffle, and somebody's going to be winning that money. So just wanted to let you know. Netsay has a great question, and I love this. Do you increase your macros during your cycle? This is an awesome question, and I actually do need to do a podcast recording / Instagram reel talking a little bit about the female cycle. And what I'm going to tell you is I typically don't increase macros on my client cycle. However, I tell them, do not be afraid to go over. If they're in a fat loss phase or they're not, I do like them to understand that they're probably going to have they're going to have cravings, and that your body does burn a little bit more calories around that time. So I do try and normalize with all of my clients that it's okay to go over. I don't give a specific, let's increase by 200 or 400 calories, because every person's different. But I do normalize the fact that it's okay to go over on your calories around your period. And that's something that I think a lot of women feel really guilty about. And you should not feel guilty about it. Why do we feel so guilty about feeding our body when it's asking for something? Because again, we are so conditioned to be influenced by external validation rather than what's going on internally. Okay, so great question, Netsay. Trying to bump up fresh veggie intake into my family with low calorie dips dressings. Do you recommend? I honestly love making some homemade stuff. A good thing that you can do, Judy, is buying the French onion dip or the Hidden Valley Ranch and some non-fat Greek yogurt or even blended cottage cheese. Yes, cottage cheese. And you can make some dips at home like that. There's also, you can do a cucumber dill dip. There's a ton of those packaged flavor seasonings, or I love just using the Bolthouse Farms dressings. You can also make things like hummus. You can bump up the protein content of that by using chickpeas and yogurt or cottage cheese. You can make a lower calorie guac by adding, using guacamole with some cottage cheese blended together to bump up the protein. But that's a great question. I love that. All right. Any other last minute questions here? All right. Going once. Going twice, because I have 3 sips of coffee left. Down the hatch. All right. Well, you guys are all awesome. If you guys have any questions, if this episode resonated with you, like I said, and you want to kind of figure out some things with yourself, do not hesitate to reach out. I will make sure that the link to sign up for a strategy session is in the show notes. Until next week, I will see you all later. Bye.